In what feels quite a long time ago, I discussed my finally getting around to Breaking Bad. And I said during that I wanted to talk more in depth at some point about Gus Fring's death scene because it's fascinating to me. I wanted to look into how believable, how realistic was it, because from an artistic standpoint it's great as a snapshot of the character. This is a guy who's been pretty much at the epicenter of an explosion and still has the presence of mind to straighten himself up and neaten himself as he, is just about to die, basically. So I wanted to find that out because a lot of things do lean into art over realism, and Breaking Bad is, as much of a culprit for this as any other show. And I get it. In forms of entertainment, we want to know that what we're seeing is entertaining, most of all. But if you ground it in enough realism, you can let those more over-the-top moments fly. So my research led me into not only how feasible it is to walk away from that kind of injury, but also how feasible it is to have a presence of mind. So he sees Hector ringing the bell, makes the connection, and does try to get out of the way. So we can assume that at least his body was turned 90 degrees or thereabouts towards the blast, which is why it mainly covers one side of him. And if he managed to jump a little bit out of the way, he would have been a little clear. Now, the size of the explosion was pretty big. So walking away with somewhat minimal wounds by comparison to what you'd expect from an explosion, I think here's Vince Gilligan leaning into art over realism. However, walking out of a room, straightening your attire, and collapsing. Like I say, this was the main thing I wanted to look at because this is a fascinating thing to me, how feasible that is. And based on the extent of the injuries, the fact that his skull was pretty much still mostly intact on that side of his face. So, based upon that, there is every chance that he was in some form of shock and could have at least walked out of the room and collapsed. That is not outside the realms of possibility, and that's really what I wanted to find out. Now, straightening the tie and going, I'm going to look good before I pass, thank you. That, I think, is art over realism. I think being in shock enough that you don't realise that you're pretty much dead means that you're very much on a basic level functioning. I think the idea of neatening yourself up, even in someone who finds appearance and how he's perceived by the world, which I guess is appearance as well, but someone who puts so much stock in that, I don't think, even with all that instinct to straighten oneself up is that inherent. I don't think it goes that deep. So yes, it is theoretically feasible that he could walk away at least from the explosion, but it's probably not likely that he'd have straightened his tie. But that's just a quick one. I've got a few things that I wanted to spend more time on coming in the next few weeks, but I wanted to get this off my slate. I wanted to look into it, and yeah, I'm glad I did the research. And anyone else who was curious and just never looked it up themselves or never kind of figured it out themselves, if they have any medical knowledge, that's my take on it. I mean, if you do have medical knowledge and you can correct me, if it is actually feasible for someone to still straighten their tie, if that can be if you're in shock, can you do those higher level things? Let me know, but I think what I've said is right based on my understanding. So next time we're going to do something back to normal style, but until then, as always, thank you for watching and take care. And look good doing it.